Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. It's the first weekend of November, which is the most important month for college football. We have 7 ranked versus ranked matchups, all of which will influence the college football playoff rankings or a conference championship game. We're going to break down each ranked versus ranked game, all 7 of them, and give you an updated look at the Heisman race. So we've got a lot to cover, so let's get right to it. Our first big game of the day is between number 7 Penn State and number 24 Michigan State. Both of these teams are coming off a loss, Michigan State losing to Northwestern in 3 overtimes, and Penn State losing to Ohio State after blowing an 18-point lead. Neither of these teams are really in the running to win their division in the Big Ten, as Ohio State now holds that position right now. They control their own destiny. I think Penn State's going to have Ohio State lose twice for them to even have a chance. However, Penn State is still in the running for the college football playoffs, sitting at number 7. If you do remember last year, Penn State defeated Ohio State, won the Big Ten title, yet still did not make the college football playoff. Ohio State did. So Penn State's still in the running. This game is really big for them. Not as big for Michigan State. It would be good to get a win over such a good opponent right here, but they're not in the running for the Big Ten championship or the college football playoff. But this will still be a very tough environment for Penn State to go into. We know Mark D'Antonio, the head coach of Michigan State, is going to want the best out of his team. And really it's going to come down to who plays the best after that loss. Will Penn State be down themselves after blowing such a huge lead? Will Michigan State be down themselves for losing in 3 overtimes? This is going to be a really interesting one to watch. It's the early game. I believe this one starts at 11. So this is really big, mostly for Penn State. It's going to be a heck of a battle, though, so it's going to be a fun Big Ten game to watch, so make sure you watch that one. Our next game, number 21, Stanford, at number 25, Washington State. Washington State, believe it or not, just a few weeks ago in the AP poll was ranked number 8 in the country. And then they lost to California in horrible fashion, and that's what really was the beginning of the end for them. They're barely in the college football playoff rankings, sitting at number 25 right now. They're lucky to be in there. Once again, kind of like Michigan State, neither of these teams are in the position to make a run at the college football playoff. However, they are still in the running for their conference title in the Pac-12 North Division. I believe Stanford is at the top of that right now. However, if Washington State wins this game, they will jump Stanford for first place in the North Division. Stanford, though, if they can pull off the upset or win at Washington State, I consider a minor upset with them having the home field advantage. If they can win that, they have Washington next week at Stanford, and that game is going to be huge to determine who wins that Pac-12 North Division. So this game has a lot of conference championship implications, not as many college football playoff implications, just going to determine who slips out of the rankings and who moves up in the rankings. But I'm really excited to watch this one. I like Washington State in this one a little bit more than Stanford. They got Luke Falk. Hopefully he'll be able to bounce back a little bit. He struggled a little bit of late, but I think they'll be able to get the win over Stanford. Hopefully Stanford's not looking ahead to that big Washington game. Remember last year Washington annihilated Stanford, and that's what really put Washington back on the map. Hopefully Stanford's not looking too far ahead, hoping to get revenge on the Huskies. So that's going to be a really fun one to watch. I like Washington State a lot in that one. Like I said, it has huge Pac-12 North implications. And this one, I think, is one of the biggest ones of the day. Number 4, Clemson, and number 20, North Carolina State. Clemson was able to slide into the committee's top 4 despite the loss to Syracuse early on in the season. They did take into account the Kelly Bryant injury. Obviously, he's back and healthy now, facing another great quarterback in Ryan Finley at North Carolina State. Keep in mind, he didn't throw his first interception until last week at Notre Dame. I believe it was like 339 pass attempts before his first interception. So he's a great quarterback. North Carolina State's going to be amped up. They right now are at the top of the ACC Atlantic Division, ahead of Clemson. If they can pull off the upset over the Tigers, not only are the Tigers' playoff hopes lost, but I believe their ACC championship hopes are lost as well. North Carolina State will more than likely win that division and face a Miami or Virginia Tech, and we'll touch on that here in a second. But I do like, back in my summer predictions, I predicted North Carolina State to defeat Clemson. I'm still going to stick with that. Clemson is a favorite right now, and I know they're pretty amped up being in the top 4. That's a huge honor, and they're wanting to keep that spot. But this game will really decide who goes to the ACC championship game. With North Carolina State coming off the loss, hopefully they'll be able to bounce back, get the win over the Tigers. It's going to be an electric atmosphere there, and I think the Wolfpack probably will get it done against the Tigers, and that's going to be a heck of a game between these two teams. So I'm really excited to watch them play. And unfortunately for North Carolina State, they already have 2 losses, both in non-conference. That's how they're still in the running for the ACC title. They lost to South Carolina in the season opener and then Notre Dame last week. And unfortunately for them, they are probably too far out of reach for the college football playoff, despite only having 2 losses. Even if they won the ACC championship, I do not see them making the college football playoff, which is very unfortunate for Wolfpack fans, but they can still make a New Year's Six Bowl. And then, probably the biggest game of the day, one that has the biggest college football playoff implications, where College Game Day is going, number 5 Oklahoma and number 11 Oklahoma State. Could you ask for a better quarterback battle? We've got Oklahoma's Baker Mayfield and Oklahoma State's Mason Rudolph. So this is going to be a heck of a game. I expect a lot of points in this one. This one obviously has major Big 12 championship implications. Right now, the Big 12 championship will be between Oklahoma State and TCU, but right now there is a 4-way tie between Oklahoma State, TCU, Oklahoma, and Iowa State. Oklahoma State faces Iowa State next week on the road. Hopefully they're not looking too far ahead to that one. I don't think they will. This is Bedlam. This is a huge rivalry game. Oklahoma just on the outside of the college football playoff ranking, or top 4. I think if they get the win on the road against the Cowboys, they will slip into the committee's top 4 as long as they win it convincingly. I picked Oklahoma State to win this game back in the preseason, and then I had them meeting again in the Big 12 championship game with Oklahoma winning that. But right now, with it being at home, I like Oklahoma State to pull off the upset over the Sooners. But this is going to be a super fun one to watch, especially the quarterback battle. It's going to be a heck of a game, no doubt about it. And this is, like I said, college football playoff implications and Big 12 championship implications, as both these teams already have one loss. Oklahoma State losing to TCU early on in the season. Oklahoma losing to Iowa State early on in the season as well. So huge games. Both have a conference loss. The loser of this is probably out of the Big 12 title race. So this is one that if you're not going to watch any of the other games, I suggest you watch this one because this is going to be the biggest one by far. And then this next game, number 19 LSU, number 2 Alabama, really hasn't lived up to the hype since that game of the century back in 2011, the number 1 versus number 2 regular season game. I believe LSU won that one 9-6 in overtime. I think Alabama's going to take easy care of the Tigers in this one. It might stay close for a half, maybe 3 quarters. But with it being at Alabama, Bryant-Denny Stadium is one of the toughest places to play in college football. You know, Nick Saban says he doesn't pay attention to the college football playoff rankings, but you know his players do. You know they're going to be really mad about not being number 1, losing that spot to Georgia. And I think Alabama's going to get the job done against LSU. They've done a great job of rebounding after that loss to Troy early in the season. They didn't let everything just collapse and make the season a lost cause. They've done a great job rebounding. They'll give Alabama a fight for a little bit, but I think Alabama takes easy care of the Tigers in the end, as they have for the past couple years. And then another huge ACC game between number 13 Virginia Tech and number 10 Miami. This game will probably decide the ACC Coastal Division and who will play, more than likely, the winner of Clemson and North Carolina State in the ACC Championship game. And if you ask me, Miami's been a little unimpressive so far. Close wins against Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and North Carolina. Georgia Tech and Syracuse are not bad teams. North Carolina's just been a train wreck, so neither of those games should have been super close. And that's why I think the committee has ranked them low. They don't have that signature win on their resume. Here they are. They can get the win over Virginia Tech. That's their signature win. I do think Miami will lose once in these next 2 weeks, whether it's to Virginia Tech this Saturday or to Notre Dame next week. Good for them. They get both of them at home. If they win both, they could almost be a lock for the college football playoff, assuming they win the ACC championship. If they lose one, they might as well be out because they don't have any huge signature wins. So we're going to have to wait and play that by ear. But Virginia Tech's going to give Miami a heck of a fight. They have a very explosive offense. Mark Richt at Georgia had trouble winning the big games. Maybe that won't be the case for him here at Miami. We can only hope. But it's going to be a good game, good ACC battle. I believe that's at 7 o'clock. It's going to be a fun one to watch. But I do think Miami will lose this game or next week to Notre Dame, one of the two. So this game can be very close. Virginia Tech has a solid chance at upsetting the Hurricanes in this one. And then Arizona at USC, another game that doesn't have huge playoff implications but has huge Pac-12 title implications. The winner of this could potentially win the Pac-12 South, will be in the lead for the Pac-12 South. Khalil Tate for Arizona coming onto the scene later on in the season has just carried the Wildcats to a 6-2 record, number 22 in the rankings. USC, many thought would finish very high in the rankings, potentially make the college football playoffs. Some even called for a national championship. Of course, they have disappointed, already sitting at 2 losses, number 17 in the rankings. But they're still in the running for the Pac-12 championship. Could potentially face Stanford, Washington State, or Washington. I'm going to give USC this one if they can stop Khalil Tate. If they have trouble stopping Khalil Tate like every other team, they will not win this game against the Wildcats. But with it being at home, being very late at night, 9:45 here Central Time, I'm going to give USC the win in this one. They're going to be amped up and want to make it to the Pac-12 title game, especially since they did not make it last year. Washington was able to steal it from them last year. So those are your biggest games this week. This Saturday of college football. Like I said earlier in my in my rankings video. I do believe there will be a couple teams that lose to unranked teams because those unranked teams were just on the outside of the college football playoff. So those are going to be great games. Real quick, we'll touch our Heisman watch. Josh Adams. Things have changed a lot since my Week 7 Heisman watch. I had Rashad Penny in there, Luke Falk, those kind of guys. They've fallen off the rails. No way they're going to win the Heisman. But Josh Adams has kind of come onto the scene. The running back for Notre Dame. He's got a solid chance to put up some good stats this weekend when they face Notre Dame, Wake Forest at home. So he's really done a great job running the ball, taking a little pressure off Brandon Wimbush, the quarterback for Notre Dame. Saquon Barkley, of course, I think is still the front runner in my eyes. I know he had a great start to the Ohio State game last week, but ended up Ohio State shutting him down later on. I still think he's the front runner, though, still extremely dominant. If he puts up some good numbers against Michigan State, I think he's still got this one in the bag. Bryce Love, the running back for Stanford, and like I said, another huge game against Washington State. He can still stay in there. But now we're in November, none of these guys can afford to have a bust game where they don't put up any good stats. This is the week, this is the month they've got to put up some big numbers if they have any chance of winning the Heisman and catching up to Saquon Barkley. Baker Mayfield or Mason Rudolph. I didn't put Mason Rudolph up here. I think Baker Mayfield is looking a little bit better. But if either of those quarterbacks can put up some huge numbers, which I think they will, they're still in the running. And then Khalil Tate, put a question mark there. Is he still in the running for the Heisman? Did he show up a little too late on in the season? He's been unstoppable so far against his Pac-12 opponents. Can he make a late season run and make it to New York to finish in the top 5 of the Heisman? We'll have to wait and find out. If he has a huge game against USC, you'll be hearing his name a lot more and can potentially make it to New York if he keeps playing the way he's been playing. So that's why I put a question mark by there. Did he show up too late in the season to have a chance at winning the Heisman? Who knows? But he's been unstoppable so far, and he's very fun to watch. So make sure you watch the Arizona game just to watch Khalil Tate. So these are your big 7 games. It's going to be a heck of a week of college football. The rankings are going to really get shaken up after this week, and we're going to really see who the real contenders are for the college football playoff and our New Year's 6 bowl games. So make sure you watch all these games on Saturday. Enjoy your day of college football. Thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.